guess I have to look over here at this part of the camera. It's rather bright behind me, don't you think? Maybe I should turn off one of those lights. There. That's better, I guess. Okay. Tea is ready. Would you like some? Today we are going to have Peach Tranquility. It's a nice little tea, I find. I'm enjoying getting into having tea and relaxing and sort of pampering myself. It's really fun. I've lined my chair with pillows today because this chair is a little too big. Let's pour our, oops. There's the little sloth representation of our finer self, eh? This is rather a short cord on here. There. So we'll just let that get ready for us. And so how are you today? Is everything going well? Oh, good morning, two people. Now remember, thumbs up. Not that it matters, but I guess it makes me feel good. I think that's, it's become a problem in these days is, I think that's still too light. Maybe I should move my chair. I'll angle my chair a little bit more. But I think it's become a problem. People are too dependent on having, oops, there you go. Always wiggling about. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Okay, so here's the chair, and there's the cup, and my journal, of course. There, I was gonna just talk to you from bed, but decide, oh, now it's showing up that my hair is not yet brushed. Oh well, you can't have everything. Sometimes things are perfect, and sometimes they're the way they are. Most things aren't perfect. Hey, I have a new idea for socks. You know, my homemade socks, if you wear them on the carpet, I find the carpet will make holes in them, the friction. Good morning, little animal. Well, you haven't spoken up before. It's nice to meet you. My day is very well, thank you. It's just begun. Well, actually, it hasn't. I started uploading videos from the Imagine Picasso exhibit last night. What an incredible experience. Those little shorts, they're 15 minutes long. Thank you. They're just 15 minutes long, and they really, the music is so... Hi, good morning, Truth Seeker today. The music is so meditative, and it takes you into it. Picasso is so disjointed in his stuff, but there's a progression in his work. There's this blue phase where everything was blue backgrounds. Good morning, Laura Young from Missouri. It's so nice to meet you. Have we spoken before? I'm not sure. Oh, this is lovely. 4 people and this many thumbs ups. You know, people are quite concerned about how, yes, this is from the Christmas exhibit, but it shines in the dark, and I kind of like it, so I haven't taken it off. The things that will thrill an old woman. But young kids, they're worried about these things, and they... Good morning, Corrine. Wow, I haven't heard from you in a very long time. Nice to see you. It's wonderful to meet with friends like this. Here I am alone in this room. This is my hotel room in Vancouver. I have not yet actually finished tidying up for the morning. It's in pretty good shape, though. Now, this pillow is not quite enough behind me. I guess I need a fluffier one back there. It's gotten down below me. There. Okay. Oh, and Shelley Johnson. Hello. We have the Picasso exhibit in Columbus, Ohio, too. Very nice, isn't it? Let me describe it for you. before you watch the shorts. I made 14 shorts, and they're, only 15 seconds long, but they've taken his paintings and paintings that are similar, and they have broken them up into segments and pieces, and some are whole, and they have displayed it on this. They've created a terrain of walls that are like mountains and valleys. It's like a topographical layout. So you can also imagine mountains behind mountains and valleys, and so you wander around these angular, like the mountains are not cone shaped. They maybe have a long part sticking out and then another part here which is actually dented backwards. So you've got, a valley on the hillside. And then they've taken from above, they shine the movie or the pictures, and they're moving. And so they're emerging, like maybe they're emerging from the top of the mountain down and changing, and then there's long walls that may have an exaggerated amount of one, like a blue background with some kind of a image on it, like some small figures, could be circles. There are, anyway, and so you see this long area of like a pattern, like a wallpaper, and then it all begins to slide. And it's coming and going, and you wander around all these moving parts and see the it's just a really interesting way to display something as disjointed and cubic and linear, and there's so many phases. They say, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about what I know about Picasso, which I did not know, except I thought he was old, like Van Gogh, or Van Gogh, as they say in Dutch. But he was alive in my lifetime. I never realized that. He I think he died in 1970 or somewhere thereabouts. And so he was a contemporary of mine. I never knew that. So it was contemporary art. But now, of course, that's old. I guess I'm getting to be the old people. My mother was the old people, and my grandmother was the old people first. And what happened in my grandmother's day was ancient history. And even in my mother's day, no, it's not long ago at all. He was maybe 1900 or 1890 to 1970. He died at 90, and he did 60,000 pieces. Started with blues. Well, he started with sketching with his children. So there are sketches, and there are scribbles. And the scribbles, in one of these shorts, the scribbles are happening while you're watching, like it's the unwinding of the paintings and becoming and it's just, it draws you in. It's like unlike any art exhibit I've ever seen. The first part is very art exhibit-ish. Big, long things of writing, the history of him, his early years, his works, his relationships. I think he had 3 wives. He had several children from the different wives. And he would play with his children, and then it goes on and it shows this whole wall of all of his paintings. And I meticulously took a photo of each painting so that I could put them on Facebook and you could see what they were. But then you go into this big room, and there's all black background. And you go into this big room of all these shapes, and the paintings they're maybe a minute long for one type of painting, and then it will go to black and come back in another painting, and series of similar paintings. And sometimes they're people, and the music, sometimes it's dark, or sometimes it's very light and wispy like the scribbles, and there's blue backgrounds or there's red. He's different phases of his work. There was a blue time and a red time and a sketching time and a scribbles time, and he seemed obsessed with boobs. I can't believe it. So I didn't like looking at all that. It was was certainly not what I would think of as art, but in his head, wherever his head was, which was a mess as far as I can tell. But to display this mess of work that this man did in such a way really brings it a whole beautiful feeling and interest. Anyway, but I think it's very expensive. It's, maybe $50 a person to go see it or something. It's but this is Vancouver where money is no object. If it costs money, let's throw money at it. Anyway, we won't go there. I'm on holiday with others who can afford to do such things. Anyway, so that's what I've been doing this morning. How about you? What have you been doing this morning? What time is it there? It's 7 here. The sun still hasn't risen, but we have great reflections of the room. That's all reflected. There's even a mirror it's reflecting. I take great pride in keeping my room very tidy. It's so nice. We're holidaying in Vancouver because my daughter-in-law has 2 weeks off between contracts, and she's very, very busy. You're drinking mocha coffee. Those calories add up. When I before I joined the church, I drank coffee. A little bit, just once or twice. I wasn't addicted to it, and I didn't like the taste, and so you had to add a lot of sugar and milk. And if you did that, it watered it down enough that it tasted like a really sweet drink. I mean, it was like having a milkshake. And it felt so illegal to me to actually have all that sweetness just because. Anyway, but I guess coffee is going to be a thing of the past. If you're really addicted, you should probably get your coffee on hand, because get it while it's not scarce, and get yourself some, put by, because. And you're sipping coffee and enjoying my company while hubby is on the road again. Well, Laura Young, I'm so glad to meet you too. So your husband must be on business trips, or a truck driver, or a delivery person on the road again, or even working for the trains. They would come, stay home for 4 days, and then they would go for 10. That's in Ontario, they did that. I like traveling. But I really like traveling when I don't have to worry about the expense. It's so different. Truck driver coast to coast. What an amazing life that must be. There must be so many there must be so many places that he's familiar with. You've read your Bible and cleaned out the refrigerator, readying for a new one to be delivered. Oh, that's always exciting. Cleaning out the refrigerator is one of my least favorite jobs, and so I have decided I have a wonderful solution for that. I have a big freezer. Anything that needs to stay cold that can be frozen goes in the freezer, leftovers of any sort. And I don't put all those sauces and jams and things. 40 years, eh? Yes, he must know those roads like the back of his hand. I couldn't follow someone else's plan, though. I couldn't just stay on the route. I would want to explore all the little roads. Once I've seen the route, now it's time to see the rest of it, to see what's off the route. And that's where I travel. Like I would go back and forth to Georgia on I-81. My mother was down there, and I was taking care of her after my dad died, and setting up a helper to come and take care of her when I wasn't there. And I would go for about 6 months, but sometimes I could only stand it for a month, and then I would go home, and then I would come back, and I would just keep doing that. So I saw that road many, many times over 6 years. But what were we talking about? Oh yes, my refrigerator. Well, so I have a little tiny apartment-sized refrigerator. Very small, fits under the counter. It's perfect. And the mustard and the ketchup and the jam and the pickles and the olives, they go in the cupboard. They don't need to be refrigerated. None of them. Have you ever seen ketchup bottles refrigerated in restaurants? Oh, you watched me driving. Yes, I remember you, Lori. What is the one that said? Mine too. Mine too is what? Oh, your refrigerator? Or I don't know. I keep changing subjects and you guys are always just a little delayed, so I never know what's going on. Try and keep up if you can. So, shall we have some tea now? This is whatever I called it, whatever it was. What was it called? Peach Tranquility. My daughter-in-law likes her her hot drink. We were doing what I. Oh yes. I don't usually take sugar in anything, but I've got this little container of stevia yesterday. My son and his family went to the grocery store. We walked quite a long way. Vancouver is a walking city. Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good fruit tea. And I like having this hot drink. It's I do it at home because my life is too confusing. It's kind of like my mind. And I have so many, just like I start new subjects, I start new projects. Guess what that's like? It's like keeping up with a child is moving from mess to mess to mess to mess. Or it's like Minecraft with a child. You fly to some place that looks pretty. Oh, look at this nice view down at this river. Let's build a little cabin here where we can sit on the edge and look at the water. Oh, let's put a boat here and slide down into the river. Let's make a waterfall there. And then you go fly over something else and oh, this is pretty. Let's make a desert. Let's build saguaro cactus everywhere. Hey, I didn't do that. Yes. What a good idea. Saguaros that stick out sideways. Oh, what a lovely idea. I shall write it down because otherwise it is as evanescent as my dreams. Would you like to hear about my dream? Okay, let's write this down. This is a very nice little pen. Le Grip. This is a dollar store pen. It very much resembles the Vancouver Pan Pacific Vancouver pen. Yes, you would let what? Can't believe what I can do. All right, so what was I going to write down? Ah, yes, Minecraft Saguaro. I love going into Minecraft because I can create and create and create. I get into a kayak video, but everything else is so interesting too. um, so Minecraft Saguaro. Cactus. Cacti. So when you go in Minecraft, you can create and make a mess and move on and create and make a mess. But you don't really make a mess because you can get rid of everything. Oh, yes, you play Minecraft, little animal. Well, on Minecraft, I am Nancy today with a space between and capital Nancy, capital Nancy, space, capital and Today. And you can invite me and I'll come and I'll build a beautiful bathroom in your world with a working toilet and a sink and a mirror and flowers all around. It'll be a separate building. I love playing Minecraft. You can just create and create, but you don't make a mess. You don't have to pick up afterwards. That's when my children were young, I got rid of all the toys at some point because they were into the computers, and it was so much easier to have them playing ABC on the computer, which was very rewarding to them. You know, they would A and they would push the button and then it would go to B and it would sing a little song and then they would push it and they go to C and they would all pretty pictures and things. And so I got rid of the toys because they were too much work. I make enough messes on my own. Now, what did someone just say that I just missed? How do I get that again? Yes, you would. Oh, yes. So, little animal. Yes. Let's play together. Okay, so Shelley Johnson. Hi, Shelley. This is my favorite thing about you. I found you because of how to get in a kayak video, but everything else is so interesting too. I could never focus and stay on one topic. So school was always like that. And you liked when I was training for the Appalachian Trail. Yes, but then I realized that the Appalachian Trail has so many ticks on it. And I really don't want to get Lyme disease. I mean, I can control all the arthritis by food and not eating certain foods. And, if I do hurt in the morning, I immediately start walking and go for a walk. And I limber up that stuff in the fluid in your joints. Once you start moving it, it gets better. It gets better. Just have to endure it for a few moments. But it's hard if it's your feet or your knees because the mobility is really hard. But a walker is amazing. Don't put off a walker because you think it's going to be an old person thing and you really can do it yourself. It takes the stress off. And just holding on to it, you don't have to put lean on it and make your legs not have any muscular strength anymore. You don't have to use it like that, but you can just play with it. You can push it ahead of yourself and just it's your friend. You take it with you, and then when you want to sit, you just swing it around and sit yourself down, and you've got a view, you've got your journal, you've got a camera, whatever you want. It's all there. But canes, if you have a bad hip and something and you use a cane on one side, you're destined to be crooked. It's going to make you crooked. And once you get crooked, everything else goes out of whack. And once your back goes out of whack, all the back is all attached by nerves to all your organs. And you start cramping one part of your back, and suddenly your liver doesn't work right, or your heart, or your digestion, or it's really good. I would not recommend a cane ever. There, that's my 2 cents worth. Now somebody said something here. What have we? Manly girl. Now, I think I remember you, but I'm not sure. That's also how I discovered you over 10 years ago. I was learning about kayaking and found one of your videos, and I've followed you ever since. Isn't that awesome? You know the best time to kayak? Well, not the best, but one of the amazing times to kayak, unless it's a dual cane. Maybe so. But you still can't sit with it. So I think a walker is just far and away. Except if you're going to walk where it's very rough. Then you need big wheels. But once you get into big wheels, you get into a lot of money. Anyway, c'est la vie. However, insurance sometimes will do things like that for you. What were we just saying? You said something. Oh, yes. Kayaking. And I was going to mention that kayaking, when I kayak and it's freezing up, it's plus 10 at home today. Plus 10, that's 10 plus 10 is 20 plus 32. That's 52 today at home. Meanwhile, here it's only about 4 plus 4. 4 plus 4 is 8 plus 32, that's 40. But it's been down to freezing and even below freezing when I've gone out there in that hot tub. That's a real trick. That's a real trick, trying to get it out there. But I've realized now that if you take 3 towels when you're leaving by the pool exit entrance, there's a racks of towels, blue stripes. Oh, it's very cold in New York. Yes, and I think there's storms going through. Well, anyway, if you take one of those towels and you put it on the floor as soon as you get out, you take it and you put it on. You have a chair which you put close to the stairs. You take that towel, you put it on the floor, and you stand on it, and you dry you dry your feet, and then you can put them in your shoes, your moccasins, which are going to get wet, and then you take one of those towels, you wrap it around your middle, and dry your legs a little bit, and then you wrap one around your shoulders, and then you put on your big fluffy bathrobe. I am in a fancy hotel. You put on your big oversized bathrobe and you tie it up. And then you could even put a third one over your head. And suddenly you're not cold. Hello, Regina. Regina or Regina? Regina? See, there's a Regina is a city it's not in British Columbia. Regina, it's not in Alberta. Regina, Saskatchewan, no. Regina, is it in Manitoba? Quebec, Ontario. It's not down east. Newfoundland, PEI. That's Prince Edward Island, where Anne of Green Gables comes from. Or, what's the other one? Nova Scotia. Oh, have I ever been out of the US? Where should I start? I was a travel writer. It was a little hole in the, oh yes, Regina is from Wisconsin. I will write that down. Regina, Wisconsin. I had in Georgia a map, and I had pins, and I put pins in where everybody lived. And then when I would plan my route home, I had three routes I could take home. I could go 95 up the coast, and I had relatives up there, and I could stop by a whole bunch of people on the way, or I could go up the middle, I-81, and stop. I had about 10 people along the way there, or I could go up through Tennessee and Kentucky and Ohio. I went down that way to avoid Sandy, and it didn't work. Sandy was way out at the coast, and I was really trying to avoid it, so I went way east, and I still got freezing rain in Lima. Where's that? Lima. It's not Ohio, is it? Indiana, Illinois. Could be Ohio. I don't know, somewhere out there. Now, what did you just say that I was thinking was so interesting? Have I ever been outside the USA? Yes. Well, I was a travel writer. And people have asked that I tell stories about my travel writing, but let me just itemize for you where I've been. So when I was young, when about 1967, I was in grade 7. Isn't that easy to remember? 67, grade 7, 68, grade 8. That's wonderful for my confused mind. Lima, Ohio, not like Lima, Peru. Yes, my friend lives near there. Shirley. She was one of my very first friends on here, and I don't think she's on here anymore. But she was quite amazing. You know what she did? She built a little cupboard that went between the refrigerator and the wall. It was about 4 inches wide, and she could it was on wheels. She could pull it out, and she had all kinds of shelves in there. She was fabulous. She was such a creator. She made an apron out of a blue jean apron for me, out of a blue jean dress. So it had the buttons and the bib, and then it just had part of the back, and all of the front, and it was a wonderful idea to make an apron out of a dress, a bibbed apron. So, back to the other subject. My daughter thinks, Mom, why do you keep changing the subject? And I'll be talking and going on. I'm 5 subjects away. Well, you know how your mind works, You start thinking of one thing and it reminds you of another and reminds you of another and reminds you of another. And you sometimes, what are you thinking about? And you say, well, let's see, where it all led me to. Oh, another comment. At Manly Girl, I started watching Nancy when she started making soap and her teepee days. Over 9 years. Then life got busy. I'm back now. She's a great lady. Oh, bless your heart. Yes, all of my teepees. I think at the height of it, I had 7 teepees. I had one on the driveway that was made of windows because I thought, putting this fabric on, you can't see through it. I'd like a window. And so I went to the reuse center at the dump, and that's all free. And there were so many windows back then. They're all leaning up against the building. And so I just started collecting windows. I just brought them all home. And 80 windows later, I had a totally glassed-in teepee. That is under Birth of a Teepee. And the teepee was called the Crystal Palace. And they're still there, all the videos. Oh, I loved my Crystal Palace. We put in a new door in the house, and so that door came to... Thank you. I'm a treasure. I like that. I like all the things you guys say about me. It makes me feel so good. Anyway, so I took a door from the house. I put a new door, beautiful, metal door with a window, insulated door. And that was great because it let light into that place. Oh, and the snow labyrinths. Oh, Daisy Debs, yes. I love making labyrinths in the snow with snowshoes. I had the snowshoe labyrinth, which was down by Sedge Meadow Teepee. That also is there. You can look up the teepees, Sedge Meadow Teepee, the Plateau Teepee. Plateau Teepee was quite large. Well, they all are large. Oh, you love them too. Isn't that great? So the Plateau Teepee was where my children had big parties. There were 7 lazy boy chairs and a couch in this teepee. It was, you tie the poles they're 23 feet long. You tie them at 19 feet. And then there's like 10 feet between all the This is so cool having a conversation with the group. This is lovely. I don't like turning off those videos. This is just lovely. Anyway, so that was, and there's Sedge Meadow Teepee, jack of all trades. Yes, I rewired my house and I put in plumbing. Oh, and the plumbing, it's all there. I tried to put in a vanity. It was a circular vanity, and inside there was a shelf. And there was a big U-joint that was supposed to go in there, and you wouldn't have any room. And so somehow, without gluing it together and working in the wall behind this thing, which you couldn't, you had to have it out so you could reach behind to put these all together, and I had to turn it so it would go in and then have the U-joint in the wall and down. And that whole thing had to happen in the wall and be figured out without falling apart and then pushed in. So it's all hidden. And so I have two shelves, and the only thing in the way is the main drain and then the curve. It was pretty smart. That was on here. I redid the bathroom. Oh, the snake in the computer. It was my husband's computer. He used to leave the side of the computer off. And the computer has the fan in there, and it's very warm. And so, isn't it? The internet is truly amazing, isn't it? Anyway, and the snake was in there. That is on here. You should find that. See, now, why isn't that video the one that's got thousands of hits? You know, the snake in the computer. We've got to find that. We got to make it be like people are missing it watching stupid things like zucchini with meatballs. You know, I've gone through the most popular and I've made them private so that people will find other things. Other things will rise to the top. Like this Nuno felting has been on there for years as the most important thing. Like, hello, it's just... Anyway, blah, blah, blah. But the snake in the computer, that was really something. I was writing in my journal or doing something on the computer, and then I see movement in the box beside me, and it's like, I thought it was just one of the wires, and that it was just, because some of those wires in there are pretty thick with the wrappings on it. You remember it too. Oh my gosh. And I'm not usually afraid of things. I don't scream with mice. I watch them and I try and track them. Where is he going? Where is he coming from? But let's see, the snake in the computer, and it started to move. And it was it just looked like one of those thick wires. And then as I realized, like, my eyes got big and I was like, oh my gosh, I can remember screaming out and standing up and backing away. I guess I must have been making a video. Obviously, if it's on a video. Or I must have pulled out my camera right away. I have my awesome Zoomy camera. Do you remember the Zoomy camera? No, that's the thing, is we have no snakes. We have grass snakes, and that's what it was. But somehow, like, we have a wooden foundation in our house, and so somehow the grass snakes had gotten in the basement. And then I heard the snakes eat mice, and the mice were coming up from the bathroom or from the basement. And so I thought, well, if the snakes are eating the mice, I might as well leave them alone. The bathroom is not the bathroom, the basement. I have noun aphasia, right? You say the wrong noun all the time. So the basement is about 2 feet thick. You can see it. There's a video there about, you started filming after you've seen it and had to, oh, did you see it then? Anyway, I saw it. It was something else. But anyway, our basement, which is 2 feet deep, and in some places we've removed some sand from the center and dumped it over the side of the porch when the porch was young and small, but it grew. It's gotten older and it grew, and it's now encompassing the whole house, and you can walk with a walker all the way around the house when it's winter, and you don't have to go up and down and worry about ice and hills and slopes. And when your body isn't working right, you really need a handicap accessible deck that goes all around. And now my dreams have gone on. I would like to have a suspension bridge, like the Capilano suspension bridge. I would like it to attach to a great big basswood beside the house, and to a cedar on the other side, and have it go from the deck across the valley in the forest, not in the main valley where you look and see the view, but in the forest above the studio, and go right across to the top of Deer Meadow because it is such a beautiful piece of forest. And I can't get there without going all the way out, down the stairs, down all the wiggly stairs, down in the valley, up the other side, and then finally in. I'm going to make it more, because I'm getting older. I have to provide for myself. And as I always say, a Nancyism, if Nancy yesterday has done a wonderful job, then Nancy today will have a good life. And if Nancy today does things really smart, then Nancy tomorrow is going to have a wonderful life. And I have to think about Nancy tomorrow, right? Nancy tomorrow is still going to want to walk in those woods when she can't move very fast because she's 90 years old. You know, so I better make her a suspension bridge, or maybe it should be a sturdy flat bridge that, but the poles and the engineering and getting 4 feet deep into the roots of the trees, you know, it's very unkind to disturb the trees' roots like that, you know. And all the mycelium, I mean, it's all got this whole operation going. They're all connected, and, well, cedars don't really give each other anything. They're very solitary under there. You get lots of mice in the winter in your house, traps in the kitchen. They're living under my stove. Oh, one got into the workings of my stove and ate it all, and my stove didn't work. So I had to remove a nest. Any place but in my kitchen. Snakes are not my friend. And spiders. Yes, well, spiders have a world of their own, don't they? They just mostly, the ones that do, that stay in the corners and trap all the mosquitoes in the summer. They are my friends. Did you know mosquitoes like to go in the bathroom? That's their favorite place, and you know why? Because they love water. They can lay their eggs in water. Even one little drop of water on the wall, it's enough for the mosquitoes. And so the spiders are onto them. And so when the webs start to catch dust and are falling apart, you know, if I happen to be in a cleaning mood and I happen to think about it and happen to have something on hand to do it with, I will remove the spider webs. But yes, you take spiders over mice. The mice have gotten into my drawers, my kitchen drawers, but my daughter, she's so smart. She puts a towel on her cutlery, the silverware. You burnt one in the oven. Oh, you had it on, oh my gosh, ordered out, I bet. You know, the thing about them, if you put down poison, the joys of living in a 100-year-plus old house, yes, and if you just live in the country, they get in. I don't know. I guess they just dig their holes. And you know, if you think about it, the walls of a house are not very, unless you have brick or solid wood. But they can dig through wood. So all they have to do, if you have siding, they just have to cut through this very thin plastic and a little bit of insulation, go through the next little layer of thin plastic, go through some fiberglass insulation, and go through some drywall, and they're in. Like, it's not like they have to saw through brick or something. And so, and they find ways, you know, they're very tiny. They only have to get their head in and the rest will slip. And how big is their head? You know, if you ever see a cat eating a head of a mouse, it's not very big. You know, I was catching something once and I realized that they're not mice. These were something that live on mice. And I trapped about 4 of them out from behind the freezer. And then I realized that now I've doomed myself to more mice. What were they? Star-shaped moles? Moles. I think moles. There's another. Shrew? S-H-R-E-W? Yes, I think so. You could hear a squeal. Opened it up, and it was a sight. It couldn't get rid of for a long time. Poor fellow. So he was in the oven. It's like boiling a frog. You can boil a frog if you start with cold water. Like, who would want to do that to a poor little frog? But anyway, yes, moles are not as, I don't know, the diseases they carry, and the droppings. And somebody said that as a mice runs, it's peeing all the time, and so it's leaving bits of pee everywhere. And so I have to wash everything before I use it. Or I turn it upside down. Stuck on the burner part. Oh my goodness. I think the best kind of way to trap them has to do with a bucket and a pencil and something tall beside it and peanut butter on the pencil, which can roll, or a rod or something that can roll. And they'll come and they'll get on the pencil for the peanut butter and they'll fall into the bucket of water, and that's the end of that. Fini. Ah, yes, all these poor things, the critters that we eliminate so that we can be here. Oh well, 'tis life. Now, I'm going to go back to where I was before because that was a very interesting thing. My travels. So, I was a travel writer. I went on 35 trip-of-a-lifetimes in paper towels or large bags. Yes, my mother covered everything in saran wrap and anything. She wrapped all sorts of things, dishes and blankets, anything that was precious that she wanted to save, she wrapped it up. Meanwhile, I just take everything out and, I have in my age and wisdom, I have been putting a piece of paper towel between each of my grandmother's plates in the cupboards. You know what I'm going to do with my mugs? I got mugs from my 35 trip of a lifetime. Somehow I have 200 mugs. But I keep getting them. Every time there's a significant event somewhere, I buy a mug. Yes, I think it's because they grew up in the 30s and they couldn't replace things. And so if you wanted it, you had to protect it, or else it would go the way. And I suppose she was old enough to have lived to see things go the way, Good morning, Cindy Ayotte. Did I say it right? Ayotte, Ayottte? I think so. I hope so. How did you manage in school? Did they get your name wrong every single time you had a substitute teacher doing roll call? Remember when we had to say, here, and they moved on to present? I'm not here. They would go through the list and they would always start with A. Good morning, Cindy. We're having a lovely visit. Would you like some tea? Pour yourself a cup of something warm. We're just sitting around chatting. Good, good. So, let's see, so my trips. So I have mugs to remind me of them all, and I think that's the best way to remember the trips. But you have to be careful. Because once you start having memories that you refer people to, you got to remember that when you get old, like when you're in your 80s, and you're going to tell everybody stories and keep everything going, you're going to end up saying those same stories over and over again. Like that's what my mother did. The time that she would go out on the tractor, she would drive the tractor, and all the hired hands, they would, oh no, not Jane. And she would have so much fun. They would put the hay bales up and they would be on the tractor and she would start up quick and they would fall off. And she would always tell different stories about things like that. Oh, I bet. Oh, most embarrassing. My daughter was named Virginia, and it was a really awful name to name her. It's my middle name, and it was my aunt's name, and I always loved that name and wished that it was my name. Thought it was so pretty, but it wasn't. Mine was Nancy Virginia. Today, not today, but I can't tell you my name on here because other people are involved and there's so much danger out there on the internet, and I wouldn't want any harm to come to my family or my grandchildren or anything. But so she got terrible, and so when she was a teenager, she changed her name to Scarlet. You know how it is when you're an adolescent. What you've been taught here, you go the opposite direction. It doesn't matter what you've been taught, you just go opposite. I have a friend who was an ex-farmie, lived on Stephen Gaskin's farm in Tennessee, the farm, and her daughter became a lawyer. Like, hippie? Lawyer. Anyway, about the travels. So you have to remember to come up with other stories that you might not have usually remembered. Have a journal and look back through it and find other things to have stories on. And maybe keep a list of stories so that I've never kept a list, but so that you don't always refer to the same story. So I have certain trips that I remember. You got Irene as the middle name for your grandmother and gave it to your daughter. I did the same thing. Isn't that nice? Yes. Yes, well, my children all seem to change their names. My first one went to from Virginia, and my next one took his first name. Hi, Robin. It's so nice to see you. Thanks for coming back. I had a dentist who was the father of a girl in my class who was named Robin. Robin Repass in Athens, Georgia. Do you remember her? Probably not. I wonder whatever happened to her. I'm 66, and so all the people on this Facebook page about the school in Athens in grade 10, which was 1970, was integration, and so they took the black high school, and they sent put white teachers in the school and had some black teachers in the school, and because the black school teachers were not trained as well because they couldn't live in the neighborhoods of the white teacher, it's amazing how this whole racism thing has gone. It started after the war. Everybody wanted to get loans, and so the government started giving loans to people to buy houses, but only whites could get the loans, and only they could live in only these neighborhoods would only have white people. And so if you bought a house in after the war for 7,000, my parents bought theirs in 1963 for 15,000. And at some point it was worth over 200,000. And so black people could not do that. And so the accumulated wealth from just owning a house that has divided the country into such poverty and such wealth. And it's a simple thing of giving a loan to a person, $15,000 loan. My dad's dad lived in Canada. He passed away when I was 5. My dad's mom passed away before I was born. So I can say I've been to Canada, but a long time ago. Yes, we have come a long way. Yes, my mom lived in Georgia. Yeah. And that was something I touched. Anyway, I died. Oh, how'd that get back? Sorry about all those interruptions. It's nice to take a sip on a cup of tea. One thing nice about YouTube, if I'm sitting at a table with people, I have to really take care not to take over the conversation, because I can easily do that. I can just I have lots of fascinating things to talk about, and it seems to be interesting to a lot of people, and they are mesmerized, and I can talk and talk and talk. But I don't end up being friends with those people because they're not really interested in me being friends with them. I'm more of an anomaly, and a person that will listen to them is a friend. So I have to not talk all the time. I have to ask questions about them. Yes, anyways, but on here, I can talk and talk and talk and talk. See, I've gone on for 48 minutes straight. Who can do that? Anyway, so I'll tell you about my travels. So the stories that I always tell are swimming with sea kayaks in Hawaii. And there was also this big, huge animal. It was like a manatee. It was some kind of a seal. I don't know what it was called, but it came out of the water and it was on the beach, and the officials had put a line and stakes around so people wouldn't go in that area. Oh, she passed away. That's what you said. She's only 79. I bet you miss her. My mom was 88. But I didn't see her for so many years. I lived in Canada and she lived in Georgia, and I never had 2 pennies to rub together. I had 5 children. I wasn't a working mom. I didn't have a career. I was too chaotic for anything such as that. So I could teach chaos to my children. I homeschooled them for a while and tried to teach them about the forest. But my oldest son was into computers, and he built them and he gave them to everybody. And we had computers in the whole house. And so nobody wanted to go outside. Why would you go outside? Everything is on the computer. There was all these wonderful things I could have taught them. I love nature. Anyway, I have digressed again, but I did want to tell you one more thing about nature. I have finally figured out what I want to major in. I was majoring in psychology. I had 2 courses left, so I say I have a BAA, which is a BA almost. And to graduate from the University of Waterloo, I only need 2 subjects on any topic over the 100 level. Well, what do I want to take over the 100 level that I haven't taken all of before? Yes, it would be fun to travel with you, Regina. Is it Regina or Regina? Maybe it's Regina because of when you put the V there, that was bothersome. Anyway, there was a girl in New Jersey. We lived in New Jersey for a while, in Teaneck. And there was a girl across the road and just up a little bit whose name was Regina. Anyway, so I was going to tell you, oh, yes, what I want to major about, and then I'll go back to what I'm going to study, or what I'm going to study, and then what I was going to tell you about the trips. So I love nature, and I love things like on the trips, there was another trip with sea turtles. And so they had a place where they were putting the sea turtles, they were moving the nests into this place where they were all a foot apart, and they had relocated them all so that they could protect them from the wild animals and from the poachers. I think this was in Mexico. So maybe it was Mazatlan, Mexico, some coastal area. Or maybe it was some other coastal area. Maybe it was Acapulco. I took many trips to Mexico. I love Mexico. Mexico they have wonderful people there, but I don't know how much the drugs and the gangs have taken over, but it's like if there's a flood in Canada, it doesn't mean that all of Canada is flooded. It's a huge place. So there were such amazing, wonderful people in such small villages all over Mexico. Anyway, I digress. So, I've decided it's called limnology, Limnology. It is, isn't it? And at many times of the year, it's quite mild all the time. So, and when you go on a press trip, if you can write, you can do a press trip. I told you about that yesterday, how to do that. But if you're on a press trip, everything is paid for, and somebody else has figured out all the attractions and the logistics of getting you there. You're probably on a bus together or in a big van or something, and they take you on a tour of the area, and then it is a beautiful culture. It's so nice in Mexico. And the children are so clean. Oh my gosh, they're so clean. They go to school and they come home and you see them walking home from school and their white shirts and their blue pants and their little black shoes and their hair is black and it's always pulled tight against their head and it's perfectly combed and they are in perfect condition to school and back. And then I guess they have their play clothes, which they can get into and get dirty. But in the market, one of those little shirts was like $20. How can these people afford $20 for a shirt for their children to go to school? I mean, it must take a long time for the father to earn enough money. But most of the fathers were absent. It was many women and children and old people. But no men, no young, working age men. They would all go to the border and then they would work in the United States and then send money home. Or they would work as migrant workers and come back. But there were no men. It was very interesting. Somebody pointed that out to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have noticed. So anyway, limnology is the study of aquatic animals and ponds and streams and wetlands. It's the study of all that. The geography, the physical thing of it, and with the plants and animals and bugs. Did you realize that in a stream, if you have trout in that stream, they can only live there because the right kind of bugs are living on the rocks? So I think there's a video in here. If you take a rock out of a stream, put it in a bowl of cool water or warmer water. Our stream is very cold. But if you put it in a bowl of warm water, like I did it in the winter, of course. So if you put it in a bowl of warm water, the little bugs will start swimming off it. You'll find there's these little tiny line things that swim away, and there's these little things that are covered with rocks, little tiny bits of sand that'll cover the whole bug that's sticking to the rock. Unbelievable. But if that's the kind of stuff in it, you couldn't put a pike in that water. First, it would be too cold. It wouldn't be, if you put a dam in the river, beavers come and dam it up. Suddenly, the trout can't live there because it warms the water up and it's not suitable. And so the pike move in, and so the pike eat the trout. But they have to live on what's in the water. And so it's all an ecology, an ecosystem of the right kind of bugs in the water support the kind of fish that can live there. So when they're stocking the streams, and there's a video of them stocking the streams, of them going by in a helicopter dropping the fish, the fry, I guess is what they called when they're about that big. There's the eggs and the larva. Is it larva? And then there's, I don't know, there's different stages. But anyway, they fly over. I live in lake country, so there's 88 lakes within an hour of me. I drive anywhere and there's lakes everywhere, which is cool because there's back roads and you can show up at some lake that nobody knows about and you can go kayaking in it and there's nobody there. Except maybe there's a house near the lake and they don't want you parking on their road or on the side of your lake, their lake, whatever. So limnology, that is what I'm really interested in, is the ecology of water. Especially where I live, we have wetlands, and so we have 3 ponds which are connected by a moat. There's many videos about the moat, even how it was built when it was being dug. And Fiddlehead Pond, when that one was being dug, and when we made Kingfisher Road, well, someone else built it for us. And the island, all those things are on there. Making elderberry oxymel. Oh, did I? No, I couldn't video that because I didn't do that back then. Anyway, so let's go on. The places I've been. So the first place was in Houston, Texas. We had butler service. And we went to the rodeo, and I couldn't see how people that want butler service, and we also test drove Mercedes. I couldn't see how people that drive Mercedes and go to a hotel like the St. Regis Houston with butler service, how they would be interested in a rodeo. But little did I know that the wealthy people, you never ask a Texan how many cows or how much land they have because you can figure out their income. So that's a forbidden topic. But these landowners, these cattle ranchers, they have lots of money. And so they dress to the nines in their cowboy boots and their hats, their Stetson hats, you know, the ones with the big brim that are made out of wool. I didn't video back then. It was before the videos, I'm sorry. I started videoing, I think, in 2007, and I was a travel writer from about 99 to 2006 or something like that. And then 9/11 came, and that I had just gone to Jordan, and then I came home on 9/11 through, I probably have said this on here, it's one of those stories I tell, right? American Airlines in Boston, in the same gate that 9/11 happened in hours later. And I got home on 9/10, and I was watching television and talking on the phone with my cousin, or she said, "Turn on the television, look what's happening. They just crashed into the Twin Towers." It was like, oh my gosh, America is under attack? How is that possible? The world as we know it had changed, and so I could not really write an article about how safe Jordan was because who was going to listen to it? Who was going to publish an article about that? So I went to Jordan. That was a 10-day trip. We went to all kinds of archaeological places, and the stories that I always tell from there are the same. Jerash had grooves in the road from the Roman carriages. The Nabateans had in the Sikh, which is in Petra, which is all stone. I guess it's probably limestone, and they had these carved out areas in them where people lived. They were originally burial places. And the more fancy it was, the more wealthy that person was. Oh, hi. Oh, yes, you got your chickens and eggs taken care of. 14 hens, no roosters. Oh, good. Yes, well, roosters, they do a number on your hands. You reach in there to get those eggs. Well, so do the chickens, don't they? I worked in a chicken barn once. Can you believe that? A chicken barn. That was in Moncton, Ontario. They had long chicken barns. They call them chicken houses in Georgia, but chicken barns here. And I remember drawing a tombstone on the blackboard and writing on it, "In memory of those who died waiting for the bell to ring." That was from school, right? But I would go, I had a basket. No, I always used my, yes, I think I had a basket when I worked in there. And I had to go and I had to collect all the eggs from the many baskets, the many nests, and they had all their beaks were cut off so they couldn't peck you. But some of them guarded their nest. It was quite lucky. It was quite a blessing. But you know, I realized it was like, oh, look, it's gotten light out. Isn't that amazing what time will do? Isn't this an amazing view? So that out there is Stewart Park in Vancouver, and back there that's Grouse Mountain, or maybe it's that one there, where we took the gondola up. And I filmed the gondola for you so you can enjoy going up a gondola and coming down. And I filmed a little inside it so you would feel like you were in it and not just watching something. Where was I? Hey, do you know what is a thunderbird? The natives out here, thunderbirds are a very important part of um, the indigenous mythology, the First Peoples, the traditional lands. I live on traditional Algonquin lands, and there's this Algonquin land claim going on, and it's amazing how people can make a treaty and then just ignore it. Well, we don't feel like that's yours anyway, it's ours, and we're going to give a mortgage so you can buy it. My chickens love to eat their eggs. Only if I crack them open, they go crazy for the yolk. Yes, and once they get a taste for the yolks, watch out. Once they get a taste for it, they will pick their own eggs if you, I don't know. I had bantams at one time when I was a farmer. That was when we lived in Brussels, Ontario. We had a pig farm and I had 250 pigs. I didn't. My husband, ex-husband, had 250 pigs a year, and I would take care of my two children and go in the barn and do chores sometimes, and chores were exhausting. They took hours, and you had to, the shovel itself must have weighed 30 pounds. And you had to lift the shovel, which was very deep and high sides, and you would lift it with the liquid that was in the pen, and you would pour it over the edge into the wheelbarrow. And if you slopped it out and made a mess of the barn, watch out. But anyway, pigs were kind of nice. Yours loved to eat lettuce and hot dogs. We used to give them all the scraps. But I finally realized that chickens were not very cost effective. I mean, you did get good stuff to eat, you had it, but I'm not sure that it was better than the next guy's stuff, because all eggs come from farms. But we didn't medicate our chickens. You had to medicate turkeys. If you looked at them sideways, my mother-in-law, ex-mother-in-law would say, if you looked at them sideways, they would drop over dead. And it was pretty true. You usually lost quite a few. If you had 10, you probably lost 3 or 4. But that was always medicated feed. So be careful if you don't have organic turkeys. You like my braids? They're quite Swedish, aren't they, or Switzerland? So I went to Sweden and Poland and Germany with my daughter. She lived in Germany, Scarlett and Bo, and they made travel stuff. And then she went into making how to make a garden, and a lot of you started watching her on there. But one day, my cousin Mary, and Mary is in many of my videos too, like the ones on removing rocks from the car trail and the toilet. How was that? I called that, oh, When Nature Calls, and using a stump for a toilet. That was one of my very first, that was the first day I started making videos. They were very funny. And then how to dress in layers. I love that. I always thought that should be the best one. That should be the #1 video out there. But it wasn't. Still isn't, but I think it's the best. Anyway, so how I got to Poland, and I just had to walk back through how to dress in layers, taking the car trail, Mary, and then to the videos, and Scarlett and Bo, and the drive with Bo. They love scraps. Mine are big girls. I leave them locked up all winter because it gets cold here, but they have heat lamps and lots of straw. Yes, we had a little tiny chicken barn that somebody had given us, and they brought it over. Oh, my outdoor bathtub, you know what? I moved it to beside the house. So it's right up against the house now, and I have a hot water tap and a cold water tap, which I've always told you guys. There's no reason not to have a hot water tap. It is as simple as it is a cold water tap. And if you want to make it yourself, you just go in there and you figure out which line is the cold water, which already goes out of there. And there's going to be a hot water one right beside it. All you have to do is put a T on it. And on the T, as you go out, you put a faucet on the inside, like a turn off. And you cut a hole through the wall and you put a faucet on the outside. You can do it all with copper pipes if you want, or PEX doesn't freeze in the winter. Anyway, but I used to have a long hose that would go into the corner cedar, and I have birch trees in there, and I have 3 hammocks lying there. You remember the hammocks? I must have made lots of videos from the hammock. I used to lay out there with my laptop on my lap, feeling very, very fortunate to actually have a laptop and to be able to take it outside instead of have to sit on the computer inside to write up my stories after going for walks, or articles, or my journal. Yes, the outdoor bathtub, that was very nice. It was called Nancy's Spa. Scarlett helped me dig into the hillside. It was too steep all over our hills, so we cut down and made, but we dug up all this beautiful oregano, wild oregano. And when we put it made flat, we never had wild oregano there again. But we did have a campfire at some point. The trees weren't as big as they are now, 25 years later. I used to go out there and I would have a washcloth and soap and my hot water hose, and I would go out there first, and with cold water, and I would wash out the tub, because of course it was under a cedar tree, so it always had greenery and bits of caterpillar poop, the little round green balls that, So I had to wash all that out, and I had a stilby growing just below the drain because a stilby liked to have their feet wet or moist, and the rest of my perennial slope garden was dry. Yes, the perennial slope garden is on here, and the teacup trail. There's a lot on here. I should go back. Once I put on 10 Nancy Todays videos. I opened new windows and I kept putting them on. The teacup trail. Anyway, I have all these videos of myself talking. And at one time I figured out that it would take 2,000 hours to watch all of my videos, and that was years ago. There's over 18,000 of them now. Well, now that I'm making so many and making all these shorts, there's going to be 19,000 in no time. Nobody will ever keep up. You've missed the boat if you haven't watched from the beginning. But I have tried to make playlists. At one time I had 500 playlists, but then they decided that 100 playlists and everything else got deleted, so I've lost a lot of... Yes, filling them for the birds. That works, except now I have a huge family of raccoons. Maybe there's not a huge family under there. There were 8 under there last year, but this year I only saw 2 babies all summer. I had 5 babies last summer, and one day I found 8 of them in that outdoor bathtub. And I went out and I yelled at them because one of them was crying, and all of them, they came out. It was like foam oozing out of a bathtub, oozing over the edges. 8 of them. They just crawled out, or 6 of them. And then they all scurried away. One came around the side, and one came straight through, and they went under the deck. And as soon as the first one got to the deck and the second one came there, they started fighting. And it's amazing. As soon as they heard that fight, all the raccoons just swarmed right over there, and they sat on them. And when you feed them, and they back up into each other, so they'll have their noses in the food. But if you put one new one puts his nose in there, they'll bite, and they can hurt each other's noses, so they don't do that. So they have these big round back ends, so they just back right up into them and move them out of the way, push them right off of the food, and then eat. But they sit on each other if they fight. It's amazing. Mary was feeding hers, and she has this raccoon that she would feed every night. She would make him up some food. She would make him oatmeal or something and feed him every night. So he would always come, and he would look in the door waiting. Well, you can go to Nancy Today on Facebook. I have millions of photos on there, and Instagram. Only I had to use 2 A's on Facebook. Nancy Todaay, because they didn't believe it was my last name. Who? Why would they think such a thing? Anyway, so what was I saying? Who knows? Raccoons, bathtub. Well, I was talking about where I had been. So Bo took us for a drive, and we explored, and we took scan lines or something, a boat across, and we went to Denmark. I guess we went from Germany. We drove through. Oh yes, Regina, I haven't seen you on Facebook. Maybe I'll have to. If you comment on something, and I'll notice it, and I'll comment back, and then I'll see your stuff. But so we went for a drive, and we went to Berlin, and then we went to Poland. It was the middle of the night by the time we got to Poland. But we also went to Sweden through Denmark. And so now I kind of know the layout of that stuff. And then my mother-in-law lives in Holland, and so when I married Willem, we went to Holland, and we went back. I think we took Virginia when she was a baby. No, took Elida when she was a baby, and she was about 1. Oh, and then I was there, and I met one of my followers. I forget her name, but she came over. It was my birthday, so it was September. She came over, and we hung out on my birthday. But so I went to Holland, and we went all over. I asked my mother-in-law. She wanted to. She and her husband. They were going to take us on a tour and show us Holland. And I said, I want to see everywhere Willem has ever lived. And so I went to Amsterdam, where he was born, and there's many different places. His father was an airplane pilot who loved ships. He was always on ships, but he was a pilot, and so he was stationed in different areas. And so we went to all these different places, and I saw this apartment building where he had climbed out onto the roof when he was 5 years old and freaked his family out. And we went to Utrecht, where he went to university and where he did his music conservatory. And we went to, yes, it was quite a while ago. I don't know, maybe 10 years, yes. And we went and toured. I did 400 videos on my last trip. So there's all those 400 videos of Holland. And I think if you type in Holland 1, Holland 2, I think it goes up to 400. I tried to number things so that they could be sort of organized. And of course, there's a playlist for Holland, I imagine, unless they got rid of it. But it probably still exists out there. But we went in a windmill, and it was 7 stories high. In the bottom is a store. In the next layer is all the bags of grain. And in the next layer is the mechanics of, they pour the stuff into the grain bags. They pour it into the elevator shaft. And it really, isn't that amazing? That's amazing. You must know me better than I know myself. That would be very interesting to hear myself from a psychological standpoint of what you have realized about how my brain works, what I think about, my flaws, my good points. It would be interesting. You must know me like God by now. Yes, the windmill worked. Yes, and in order for the blades to go around, they have sails. So when you see a picture of a windmill with on the blade is all X's or windows, it's not working. The wind is blowing through it. You have to open the sail and connect the sail across that blade, and then the wind will catch it and it will go. So they have a brake up there, and they put the brake on, and then they let the brake off and move one blade as they put the sail on the next one. It's been going on a long time. This is a lovely visit we're having. 73 minutes, an hour and a half. It's kind of like a live cam. Haven't drunk much of my tea. You see, this is what happens when you talk a lot. Okay, so Holland, yes, the blades go around and they go very fast, really fast. And they are attached to a wheel which spins and which is attached to a shaft which has the stones which grind the wheat, which is attached to, then this is all different levels, right? Different stories, which is attached to an auger or an elevator, which you pour the grain in down below into a hopper, and it goes up the elevator, and then it goes into the stones, and then it goes, and then there's the shaft. Oh, and then there's after the stones, it goes up and it is put into bags or the flour. Anyway, it's all very well done. They're very useful. And so down below you can buy flour. And there's a gift shop, probably a bit of a, not really a gift shop, but it would be more like other useful items to go with buying your flour. Okay, so that was Europe. And then there's Switzerland. I went there on a press trip and I saw a nutcracker. I had never seen. That's so cool that I've been part of your life. How many years is it now? 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 14 years. Almost 21. Almost 15. And there's still stories I haven't told you. That's not 11. Is it 11? No. 11 would be, from now, would be to 2010. But I started in 2007. 3 years extra. 14. It's a long time, eh? Anyway, so so Switzerland, we walked to the top of Jungfrau Joch. Is that what it's called? Yes, Sweden, I only saw the very tip. We went to Malmo. We stayed in Copenhagen in and I made a video. Oh, yes, I made videos of all this stuff. Yes, Malmo was in Sweden, and we went to a restaurant because Mary said, you have to go to a restaurant, else you haven't really been there. Because you interact with the people there and see what the food is and get a little hint of the culture, maybe a bit of the music and the people and the conversations and the food and the view. Yes, we did. Went in Switzerland. We started in Zurich and took train all the way around to Bern, and then we went up in the mountains. And every mountain is called Alp. You do remember? Yeah, it was a golf course of some kind, and the guy that it was named after, he was a very famous hiker, and he had hiked the Alps, all of the tall mountains, the Matterhorn and Everest, and he had hiked everywhere. And he took us on a walk alongside a glacier, and then he listened to our breathing. And I was overweight. I was about 220 or 230. And so he could hear that I had labored breathing. And he could hear the sound of my footsteps, and he knew that I wouldn't make it on the glacier. So he chose, out of our group of 13 or something, or 12, he chose, 13 being an unlucky number, right? He chose probably 7 of them, or 9. There were 2 of us that didn't go. One had a cane, and me, who was fat. So the rest of them, I did try to yodel, yes. And when I was in a gondola, I looked down and I saw someone with an Alp horn. I think these videos must be on there. Are they? Is it before that time? Maybe it's not on there. Because I was a travel writer and I hadn't started Nancy Today yet. I figured if I did Nancy Today, I would also be able to use that to get comped trips, to be on press trips, because I would say I had all these subscribers, I had all these videos, or in other words, so much circulation. But most of my videos don't have a lot of hits. You know, there's 1 million with 100 hits or something. But the ones that are 1,000 or more, there's not that many of them. Well, maybe there's 100. Maybe there's 50. I don't know. I've never looked. I don't even know how much things are. Yes, I've worn my hair braided like this since I had long hair in high school. You know, the things that you do as a child are the things you do as an adult. You do the same things your whole life. You get these little, you know, like I always wore my hair in pigtails. I loved pigtails. You'd have them high. It would make my hair look longer. I think I saw a video of myself the other day with my hair in pigtails. It was only short pigtails. But anyway, and so now I just use clips to clip it in that place, same place. Things don't change much, and I used to have to use these huge clips to hold my hair on both sides, and now I can get away with these little tiny, tiny things. Imagine that. I didn't think that your hair would really become thinner. It's a good thing I have a huge amount of hair because you can see through it now. But it's a good thing I have a ton of it because otherwise I wouldn't have any. Or very thin, you know. Anyway, so that was Switzerland. I saw a nutcracker. It's a bird. It looks like a bird. It looks like a woodpecker, I think. Maybe it doesn't stand like that. Maybe it's. But anyway, look up nutcracker. I didn't know. So the Nutcracker Suite, right? That was um, a piece that came from Europe. And so we hiked on these Alps. So there was Rieder Alp, Rieder, Rieder Alp. And I think that's where we stayed. Was a golf course, and the Alps were around it. And so we climbed Rieder Alp. We climbed other Alps, and we went to Schilthorn, and Jungfrau Joch is a very tall place. And we took the train up, and you can stop and see out the windows. They have these little black. It's all dark in the train, in the place up. I think I do know you better than you do yourself. Oh, I followed you for years and listened to everything you spoke about. Well, you need to write to me on Facebook and I want to know. You can psychoanalyze me if you don't mind. I would love that. I only have my daughter psychoanalyzing me, and she's a little bit prejudiced about her analyses, right? As you can imagine. So, let's see. Rieder Alp. And so he only selected some to walk on this glacier. And it turns out when we walked to the hut, which was a place you could stay overnight and a place you could eat. And it was way out in the middle of the Alps. Sweet treats from Switzerland. I know I brought maybe they had chocolate. And every town had a different kind of chocolate. And every town had a different kind of cheese. Oh, and you could rent a cow. Elsewise in the world, you could rent a cow, and then they would send that cheese to you in the autumn. And they would take the cows from where they lived on the farms, and they would move them, and they would walk through the towns. And in order to walk through, they made them up like Christmas trees. They put bells and decorations, and not like Christmas trees, but they were very beautifully decorated. And bells, and every bell was yes, there was different kinds of chocolate. They had the long ones in the triangular container. I forget what that's called now. They would decorate their cows, and they would walk through the villages, and all the villages, it was like a parade, and everybody would come out and watch, or you could hear them, could hear the bells. And in the Alps, you would hear a bell, and all the bells of that group had the same sound, but the other person's bell was a different sound. Well, I probably brought windmill-shaped cookies home from Holland. I did bring speculoos, that's what those windmill-shaped cookies are, and there's the round, small ones, which are really hard and taste like anise. I forget what they are. I tried to make them, and they never turned out right. I think you could probably make them with almond flour. Things to try. Anyway, so the Alps, so we hiked through the mountains. We hiked through the forest in the Alps. That was very interesting. I've always been interested in what the plants are and what the trees are and what kind of bugs and animals and everything. There's so much in the woods. Yes, they had mountain goats on the Alps, and they had sheep. The mountain goats were often the wild ones, I think. Yes, and walking, we went up to Schilthorn. We came halfway down from this highest mountain, and then we took a walk. And the signs on the walkway are all in minutes. You know, the next town, the next village is, say Bern, 30 minutes. I don't remember, that wasn't a town, that was a huge city. But all these little villages and stops along the way. Oh, and there was this museum. It wasn't a museum, it was an old house. And it was just the way it had been hundreds of years ago, 500 years ago. And it was very thick. All the wood was very thick, and the stairs were very thick, and they were grooved. You could see the dent where they'd been walked on, and the doorways were very short. They were no bigger than 5 feet, maybe even less. And the kitchen had no chimney. The wall was blackened, and the ceiling was blackened, and I guess there was a crack there where the smoke went out. It was in a separate room. You had to go through into the other room. It was 500 years old, and it's probably, if you Google old old house in Switzerland. It's up in the mountains. We walked and walked. We walked from village to village. It was really interesting there. I had these big clunky new hiking boots, which were so heavy. I think I would have been better off in Crocs. I bet your family will watch your videos and have such sweet memories you made for everyone. You sure have shared your life with us. That's why we love you. Thank you. I hope so. I hope my grandchildren watch. My children aren't very interested. My daughter, she will show videos of me to people to sort of introduce her to where she comes from. This is my mother. And my cousins, I remember sitting around at Thanksgiving when I had just started making the videos, and we were all in stitches. I think the reason I started was because I saw a video of myself. We had those big, huge video cameras, and I had borrowed one from a friend. No, I tried wooden clogs when I was in Holland, and I tried to get them big enough that I couldn't really feel the wood on my feet. And then I had to wear big, thick socks to wear them. But in Holland, they wear them in the gardens. They always wear wooden shoes in the garden. It would be good for my shoes if I only wore wooden shoes in the garden. I ruin everything. I ruin all my clothes. I ruin all my everything. Because I just do what I do. Okay, so we were talking about other places. So Switzerland, that was fascinating walking. I have a whole photo album from that trip. And the photos are just, I remember everything when I look at the photos. I had photo albums from every press trip I took. I rafted down the Taku watershed. So I've been in all the, they have amazing gardens. And the vegetables just grow 3 times as big. You see, towering plants. Even here in BC, I got romaine lettuce yesterday, and the leaves are a foot high, is 6 inches or more wide. Unbelievable. I always dip the leaves in hummus, and then I fold them up, and then fold the edges in, and eat them like a little tiny square with hummus in the middle. It's very tasty, and it's a lot easier and nicer than making a salad. You make a salad, you're going to end up destroying so much of the lettuce. You can't keep it till tomorrow. It's going to turn brown on the edges, and then you've got to somehow mix your hummus with it. Well, try mixing thick hummus with that. It doesn't work. But you just dip the stiff end of a leaf of lettuce in and roll it up. Fold it in, and if you wanted to do it in a restaurant, you would put a toothpick through it. I'll have to sell that to somebody. Oops, secret's out. So that was Switzerland. I have time to talk, if you do. Wood branches for fencing. Now, I've seen that. I saw that in Mexico. And I've mostly not seen that. I don't think I've seen that in Europe. Maybe so in Holland. Yes, they would. I saw a wall in Holland that was made out of seashells. They took like a chain link fence. They took 2 chain link fences and filled them with seashells, and that became their wall. Yes, like sticks. I've seen that many times, but I'm not sure if it was in museums and in those gardens that go with a Pioneer Museum, or if they were in the wild. You could Google it, Sticks as fences. It keeps telling me about snow accumulation and all these things that are going on. I guess there's supposed to be a lot of storms in the Midwest down there. Okay, so Switzerland. I remember walking down this slope. Everything was sloped, and the hill was sloped too. So you're walking on an angle like that. And it was so hard on the side of my feet. Yeah, that was really nice. That was in Holland, in the north of Holland, it was where Willem's dad used to live, and his wife. I don't remember. So what else? So that's Europe. And then Cyprus. I went to Cyprus, which is also the coast of Israel. And I always, it's 60 miles out. And I always tell the story about Lazarus. When Jesus raised him from the dead, he got in a boat because he was sort of an objectionable person who wants to hang around with a living dead. Like, this is too weird. And so he left and he went to Cyprus. And when Paul was doing his tour and his travels, he went to Cyprus and he ordained Lazarus as a bishop. So he was the first bishop in Cyprus, and they have a big church there, and his tomb is under this church. It's the Church of Lazarus or something. Google it. Maybe you'll find that on there. Cyprus was very interesting because the north of Cyprus was now owned by Turkey, and the south was Cyprus. And the Cyprians that I was with, they did not like the Turkish being in the north. And so there was this dead zone, and they had a statue of arrows falling or rods falling and destruction. It was some very big statue, and that was in, what's the capital of Cyprus? Oh yes, I just read that a candle making place was burnt down. Lots of lives lost. Oh no. Oh dear, that's too bad. Usually not many lives are lost during these storms. I don't know how they manage to not be, but it seems like everything is getting worse. They all hit more people, more populated places, etc., etc., etc. Cyprus. So we had Turkish delight, which is kind of like Jello, but it's not. It's thicker and stiffer than Jello. Could be Jello. It's stiff, not as much water added. And it's sweet, and they have powdered sugar all over it, and it comes in a box. Oh, that's where I got my pine cone basket. It was a basket made out of all these pine cones wired together. I'm hearing noises in the next room over there. That's where the rest of the family is. My son goes out and gets tea every morning, and I ask him to bring me, I guess he goes to Tim Hortons, and so I get the apple and spice there. And then I have discovered these green things from the juice place next door to it. You can get a big, gelatin. You can get a big smoothie, Go Green or something, that I've started having. Have to have stuff here that's green because a lot of the restaurants we go to, it's mostly starch and meat and just a hint of a vegetable. Isn't it lovely? Yes, it's changing. It's all reflecting in here too. And you can watch the ocean liners out there. Like the ocean liners, there's a gas station out there on the water. I guess it's, where's my finger? It's right there. That's a gas station. I think it's Chevron. And over in here, you go down there and it's all the boats. And there's float planes down there and they take off. Oh yes, you saw me cut out sugar and I lost lots of weight, didn't I? It just sort of started falling off. But I didn't cut out sweetness. I'll show you my latest sweetness thing. If I can reach this drawer. It's this stuff. It's, this is just pressed figs, but this one is figs with almond. It's called a fig almond cake. But you know, you could make this. You just take almonds, and you see there's an almond deep in that area, and mash up figs and almonds and make a cake out of it. Make a brick out of it. Here, have a taste. It's very good. Anyway, I also get juices. Oh, and there's a kind of candy bar you can eat too. This one. It's even chocolate mint. It's good to go. Dug Ot Og. Anyway, good to go. And in it is almond flour, inulin, erythritol, chocolate chips unsweetened, chocolate, inulin, erythritol, cocoa butter, sunflower lecithin, vanilla extract, rebe vinegar, sea salt, baking soda, natural flavor, ground chia seeds, sunflower, contains almonds, may contain other tree nuts. No milk or dairy, no sugar, no wheat. So it's good to go. They cost $2 or $2.50 or more if you go to an expensive place. Yes, they do go great together. Perfect. Okay, should I tell you any more? Let's see, what else should we be telling you about? So we did Switzerland and we did Europe. Now we're on Cyprus. So I can't remember the capital, but there's a no-go zone, and there's the army on this side and there's the army on that side, like in Korea. What is that called? Anyway, forget it. Anyway, that was Cyprus. And where else did I go? Oh, look, we're going to have sun. Wow, there's going to be a break in the rain. You can see Stewart Park. That's all Stewart Park out there. And there's the aquarium is out there, and also totem poles somewhere. And when you go up past it, then you get to the Capilano Bridge. But you know it costs $50 to get in? Unbelievable. I went there on a press trip, and then I went again with my family. And it's amazing. It's so beautiful. My tea has gotten cold. Huh. Okay, so where else? I always flew over Greenland and Iceland, and we refueled in Ireland, but I've never, and I changed flights in Manchester. Oh, I love that you're chatting. I think this is wonderful. You know, there's a lot of people that are shut in, people that are lonely. Like I was getting kind of lonely before this trip, you know. Couldn't see my grandchildren too much because they had school, and I don't see people because I'm at home and I don't live in a city, and I don't want to go to town, so it kind of limits it. Well, some people say they like to, oh, hello, Crazy Chris. I wonder where you got your name from. So I was trying to answer a question that somebody asked a long time ago about have I ever been out of the United States. Let's see, it is 8:30 here. You see the sun, it rises at 8, so we have sunrise happening out there now. Coming to you today from the Pan Pacific, Vancouver. So I went a lot of places in Mexico. Oh, and then there was outside of Venezuela is a little island called Curacao. I went there, and it's a volcanic island, and we went for walks, and the terrain is very rough when you're over land. Oh, hi, Shelley. Yes. That's good, eh? Because no sense sitting and watching. There's not much going on but looking at my face and my expressions, and sometimes you get the light of the light in your eyes, and sometimes you get to see the view. It's a really nice place. Really nice. It's too bad everybody in the whole world can't go to places like this. Too bad everything has to be. But in heaven, it'll all be free. We can do everything. It'll all be free. Everybody is equal. There will not be any black and white differences and totem pole of, God isn't like that. It's only people. So Cyprus, they had the most amazing exhibit. It was a museum of the slave trade, and it was eye-opening. Oh my gosh. So the Dutch East Indies Company, they would go to Africa, to Ghana, and they had people in Ghana, black people, that would kidnap people and would take them to the coast, and they would deliver them to the ships, and they were paid some amount of money. And then they were put on these ships, and they were lined up, laying down on these boards with cracks in them, and they were naked, and they all spoke different languages, but sometimes they would talk, and they would find out they could communicate with one another. And they were shackled in chains, and so only a certain percentage of them lived to get there. And when they would get there, they would go to Curacao or Jamaica or Haiti or something like that, where they would fatten them up. and make them healthy and maybe teach them something that could be useful to sell them for. You know, that this person is a housekeeper and this person farms and this person, you know, fishes or whatever. They would teach them as things so that they would be useful as slaves. And then they would be, and there was a place in Curacao where they were sold. It was in Christianisted, I think, where they would bring them up on the auctioning block on this little platform area. It was a terrible thing. It was a very interesting museum. But, okay, that was Curacao. Volcanic rock. There was a woman in the woods that we went to see who knew all about the herbs, and she made herb medications. She was a very interesting old lady. She was maybe my age. I think she was older. Oh, yes. And then we also saw this woman who, it was in Cyprus. She was gathering olives, and she had this huge bowl full of green olives. And do you know you have to pickle the olives? You can't just eat a green olive. I tried eating an olive off the ground. Awful. It's amazing how these people in these cultures have taken things that taste awful and turned them into something that's wonderful. You know, like when I was eating these beans last night, there was a lot of peppers in them, different kinds of pepper, and it was really turning my mouth out, or stinging. Do you know that each pepper, all I have is my phone. I suppose if I moved into another room, I could place her on my TV, Lo, but I spend a lot of time in my kitchen. Yes, go for it. Do the dishes. So, let's see, what was I saying about the beans? So, each kind of a pepper makes a different part of your mouth tingle. Did you realize that? There was one that only affects the sides of your tongue, one that touches the back, one that's at the front and your cheeks, and they're all different. And so they've combined all these. But I would have thought these are horrible foods. Why would you ever eat them? But they have done all these things with the foods that grow there. Everybody has. We've all survived and made ways to make bitter things taste good. You know, like lemons. We add sugar. And I always make hot lemon tea now. There's a video on that in here too. So what else? Anything else about Curacao? I guess it was a good place to buy diamonds, supposedly, but they all just looked like expensive diamonds to me. I wasn't going to buy anything. But I got mugs. I got mugs from every place. I have so many mugs. There was one guy in Florida that was making things out of metal. And he made so many things out of metal. I like lemons now too. I always order hot water and sweetener. And now I bought some sweetener I can keep with me. And I squish the lemon, which is always a mess. I have a little squisher thing that I can carry in my purse, but I've never got it when I go. It's in the glove compartment of my car, though. That's one thing. I always get hot water and ask for lemons and sweetener, and I make my own lemonade. I did that once in Acapulco, and they charged me $8 for lemonade. Can't get away with anything in some places. Oh, and the Virgin Islands. I took Elida with me to the Virgin Islands. That was one where you could take your children. And so she spent the whole time trying to get a suntan. She doesn't tan. She's very redhead, so she's got a white face, which never tans. And of an ant. Neat. I bought a turtle, a wooden turtle with eggshells all over it. Little bits of eggshells. I thought that was such a cool thing to do. You know, when I was with Scarlett, she was into different kinds of art, and you could buy soapstone, and so we carved soapstone. Yeah, the Virgin Islands was very nice. So we went on a sailboat, and this is the story I always tell about that one, Buck Island. We sailed out to Buck Island, and I found conch shells. And there, they call them conch here, but I think they're conch, and they put a hole in the tip, and that lets the vacuum go, and then they can take out the animal and eat it. And so you find these mounds of conch shells with holes in them. And so you cannot bring a conch shell back that does not have a hole in it. It's just not allowed. It was contraband. That was interesting to walk along this very white beach and look at and collect conch shells. And then, hi Corey. It's nice to see you too. I don't remember your name, so maybe I don't know. I haven't seen you for a long, long time if I have. But it's nice you're here. You've kind of come in the middle of it. 105 minutes in already. How could this be? We're talking about all the places I went. So the Virgin Islands, there was on St. John's, we took a walk. We hiked up a hill. And they don't have, I don't think they have their own water. They don't have any springs or rivers or streams on the island, and so they have to have a desalination plant. I think that was St. John. There's three of them in the trio. So there's St. Croix, St. John, and St. Thomas. And there were people playing basketball or not volleyball on the beach in St. Thomas. Oh, and I put sugar on the railing, and the little banana quits were supposed to come and eat from the sugar. They would went to Jamaica and bought wooden birds, and they took their eyes out since they were berries. So customs took them out. Oh, interesting. Yes, berries, that would be in case there's bugs or any disease or anything living. Can't have that. Yeah, in Jamaica, I lived up in the mountains with the Rasta. That was such an interesting thing, learning about life through their eyes. It would thunder and they would say, "Aye, Rastafari." It was very interesting. And swimming in waterfalls, in natural lakes, not lakes, ponds, on the waterfall. It was a fascinating place, and everywhere you look was fruit trees, and you could pick from them, and they would harvest the bananas and keep them in a metal container so the rats or mice wouldn't come in. Get them, and we lived in a grass hut, Rastafari, yeah. And we had Haital, which was vegetables in coconut milk, and I was taught that if you eat dead things, that you become dead, so you shouldn't eat meat. And so everything was living. Ate all these fresh foods that we would gather and dig up, and lots of different kinds of yams and beans and seeds and vegetables. Not much of the normal celery and carrots and potatoes. I didn't use those. All kinds of, and the fruit, there were millions of kinds of fruit that I'd never heard of before or seen, and like a pineapple, kind of a crust on it with a sweet, sweet fruit inside that was white and had big black seeds in it. Oh my gosh. And you got to go for a week with them as they worked on brochures. Wow. Soursop. That's right. They called it ISOP. Soursop. That was so good. And they had these apples, which were not apples. They were bright red, bright white inside. But they called them apples. I guess they were red outside. Different texture. Oh, but the best was breadfruit. Breadfruit grew in big balls on the tree, and you cooked it in the fire, and it was so good. It was kind of like a bread texture, and it was really wonderful. Breadfruit was so awesome. And there were jicama yam and the N-word yam and cassava, and all those roots. You would cut them up and boil them in the coconut milk. And then the grated coconut would go in a calabash, a half of a calabash, which was made into a bowl. They were gourd, I guess. They cut them in half. And our spoons were made, they were just these rounded flat pieces that were a little bit sloped. And they came from coconut shells. But so you'd take your grated coconut and you would put it in this dish on a little wooden tripod. And when your hands were dirty, you would take a handful and you would rub your hands on it. The coconut would get dirty and you'd throw it on the ground. It was wonderful. Oh, in our bathroom, it was a big hole with vines growing around the edge of the top and 2 planks. And I was so befuddled. What do? Do you sit on them and dangle your feet down there? It turns out you squat. They squat all the time. They sit in a circle and squat and have a conversation. The Vietnamese do that too. I was on the refugee camp, and they would have get-togethers, and they would all sit in a circle on the floor. They would squat in a circle on the floor, and and laugh and play. So St. Croix is the one with the banana quits, and it was very pretty, and it had these lots of little cottages all around. I really liked St. Croix, and they had these buses, which I remember trying to remember what they looked like and analyzing them as we were on them. They were open. You sit, everything was open because it was humid and hot. Had a top and had posts, and had benches and benches that faced backwards at the back. And that was St. Croix. And I took pictures of all the different houses as you went along. There were a lot of shack kind of houses, but there were some good ones in there. And very poor people. And St. Thomas, what was it about St. Thomas? There was a water ferry, water taxi. So you would take a water taxi from the mainland to get to the next island, I guess. And there were puffer fish in the water. Was lots of fish in the water. I remember landing and it was night and staying at the edge of this water taxi dock waiting and looking at all the different kinds of fish. We stayed in a villa, but the little critters would love to climb into the open windows through the bars at night. I was always afraid of something climbing in my nose or ears. Yes, when I was in the Yucatan, in Mexico, they had hammocks and they would sleep in hammocks, and their houses were cement a few feet high, and then they were thatched, I believe. But I wasn't really, yes, I did analyze the thatching. They had a good structure underneath it, a rounded top. They would just have hammocks inside, and they would do everything outside. You had to step up a few steps to get into them. Oh, and then there was cenotes in the Yucatan, and a big hole, and you could rappel down the wall, or you had to lean out over a well, an open well, holding on to two ropes until the pant sort of thing that you were sitting in would take your weight. And you really had to have faith that this thing was going to hold. Otherwise, you would fall to your depths. You're 4 stories deep. You'd fall into the water. And then you had to rappel. So I didn't know how to rappel, but you have an S hook, and you have the rope going up and going through the hook, and below the hook, and you let one rope up, and you keep doing that, and you lower yourself down. But then to climb out, you had to use a rope ladder. And rope ladders would always swing like this, but you don't use them like a regular ladder. You're supposed to use them from the edge. So you hold it like this, and you're climbing up the end of the ladder. So 1 foot this side, 1 foot that side. And it works that way. But they would also lift the ladder out. They rolled it up. It had a thing up above, I guess. And we swam in the cenote. And they tunnels, they connect together. There was a famous event, Ixtapas or something, I don't know, and it was all cenotes, which are underground rivers, underground streams, and you could float through it. You had something you could float on. Oh, in Negril, see, that's where Bully would sell his tonic on the beach. We stayed in another villa and had hammocks for beds on the black sand beaches, watching people jump off a cliff at Rick's Cafe. It was great to watch. Yes, that would be interesting. Yes, I remember seeing the different kinds of buildings in Negril, different little places. It would be totally different now. That was 25 years ago. No, it was 35, 45. I'm 66 and I was 17. So what does that make? 49 years ago. Everything would be different. I had a dream about Jamaica the other night, and I had gone back. Finally, I'd gone back after so many years I would dream about the pathways when I was young, and that you would take from Hanover Bay, is that what it's called? No, Montego Bay. You would take Ruby's Transport. You would go to the market and get the bus Ruby's Transport and take it up to Cascade, and then you would walk on the path to Bully's. His guys is what they called it. He had an American guys, which was not thatched, but it was where he would invite the Americans in Negril to come up and stay, and they would pay, and he would take the money for food, and he would go down to Montego Bay and buy lots of food and then bring it back, and that's what he would feed everybody, Itol. And then he lived in one that was thatched. And there was a few other people there. And so it was a thatched place, and there was a cook. And he would, and so I love thatched houses. And so that's why I thatched all my stuff down there at the Sedge Meadow. So have I covered it all? There were many places in the United States. Amarillo, Texas, with the half-buried Cadillac cars, and horseback rides down in the canyon near Amarillo, and the hill country in Texas with all of its German people and German food. And there were birds. We went out watching birds. I would usually try and get a tour with an ornithologist when I went on these trips, like in Mexico. So I went out at 5 in the morning and I saw the caracara and other Mexican birds early in the morning. I've taken my bird book with me everywhere. It's quite an awesome book. I sure do rattle on. An hour and 15 minutes. 60 and 60 is 120. This is almost 2 hours long. And you see, I've only taken breaths. I can do this. I can talk all day. I had my hair braided so tight when I got back home after a week. I took them out and my head was bruised. Only cost me $10 American dollars on the beach. I did that somewhere. In Acapulco. I had gone there for Tianguis, which was where travel people come and they buy up so many flights and so many hotel rooms and so many. You've birded the world too? Oh, I love it. I should show you my book sometime. It's full of notations, and I opened it to find out the birds that were here. And there it is. This one, I was looking at the gulls, and there's this one, Vancouver, 2004. That was a press trip. So in Canada, I've gone to Newfoundland and Quebec, and well, I live in Ontario. Newfoundland. I haven't gone to Labrador. I would love to go to Labrador. It's called Newfoundland and Labrador, but I haven't been there. And so what have we gone to? Newfoundland, Nova Scotia. I've not been to Prince Edward Island. I live in Ontario, and I've been in lots of places here, and I always try and take different routes when we go to Toronto. And I haven't been to Saskatchewan or Manitoba. I did go to New Brunswick with my family. Oh, and I did the Gaspé in Quebec. That was very interesting. We went out to this island, La Aventura de las Isla de la Aventura, or something like that. But it was covered with northern. They're very colorful. They have black and yellow and white and a bib. Northern gannets, and they were like 80 centimeters between each bird, and the bird would defend its spot, and they would do this little neck dance when the mate came back with fish from the water, and they would do the changing of the guard. They had these little gray chicks under them. It was a fabulous thing, and there was 10,000 of them, so the whole, like out there, the whole mountainside was covered with gulls. And then they would be in the walls too. The whole wall would be covered with one kind of, they had this black bird, black and white bird, you know. And then of course I rafted down the Taku in British Columbia. You lived in Toronto for 4 years and don't remember any birds. Well, I bet there were Canada geese on the river, on the lake. Not a lot of birds, maybe. I don't know. Cardinals do seem to like cities. They don't want to come to my house. It's not convenient for them. They want to be able to go feeder hopping. I should just put up 10 feeders. That might do it. Then they could think they're in a city. So those are the islands in Europe. I haven't done South America at all. I would love to do South America. I would love to go see Antarctica. I would really love to go to Nunavut and to the Inuit and be up there and learn their native skills and go in a canoe with them, go on a hunting trip. You know, it would just be fabulous. Or see narwhals in the water. Narwhals are like whales with these huge long points out the front. Canada is a fascinating place. It's all, the whole southern Canada is green. But when you get further up, quite further up, then it can be permafrost and stuff, but that's pretty far up. We have seasons. Okay, I think I'm exhausted. This has been a very nice time hanging out with you, and I hope you'll come back for tea soon. I must. Uruguay, yes. Oh, yes, and there's that island, the Galapagos, with the turtles. Who knows? Being grandma is a wonderful ticket for traveling with my children. And they can go anywhere. So, until we meet again, which is probably soon, I'll probably take another video of whatever we do today. And they'll be uploaded. I really like making these little shorts. They're only 15 seconds long. And you have to move the thing along so you can leave out what's not very interesting and just take the crux of the matter. You're welcome, Lori. That was fun. There are so many more parts to them. I'll have to go back and find the other stories. There's 35 trips, and I don't think I told you that many. There's some that really stand out, I guess, aren't there? The Alps and snorkeling in Mexico and in Hawaii. Oh, and in the what's the it's in the, not the Dead Sea. I swam in the Dead Sea, or floated, and I almost got salt in my eyes. You have to be very careful. Well, if you subscribe, you'll get an email notification or something as soon as I'm on. And the live video. Nancy Today is now on live video. Anyway, so as I keep saying, like and subscribe. I don't know why I say it, because everybody says it, and I think it's the thing to do. And the likes make me feel good. It kind of is intimidating when this number of how many people are watching is like 14. That was how many today, and it was like, oh my, I hope I don't say the wrong thing. But you know, thousands end up seeing some of these, and others just go by the wayside completely unnoticed. If I upload too many, then one of them might get more, but the others will get less. Many less. And some will just get one or two. So, this looks like whiskers, doesn't it? Yes, these are my whiskers. Last night I dreamed that Willem and I had built 2 houses from scratch somehow, and I hadn't finished it, and so this whole area was rotting because I hadn't finished that part of the roof. It's the story of my life, 90% Nancy. That would be a good name, 90% Nancy. I do everything 90%, and then I move on. I've had enough of that. I've learned what I wanted to know. Thank you, Regina, whichever it is. This has been fun, and I guess you finished your drink too. Have I finished mine? Yep, that's it. Okay, I guess that means the visit is over, because you know that the visit always ends when the tea is done. So, ta-ta, unless they say, would you like another? Oh no. Okay. So, you can do this at home. Results may differ, and you saw it here last, or heard it here last. I'm going to have to write down some of these stories so I have more to tell you. Goodbye.